It's always wonderful to visit India and to do this, especially doing what I want to do, what I do all the time, which is about diabetes. It's really fantastic. I don't know how many of you are aware of the mission statement of the Cleveland Clinic. But the mission statement of the Cleveland Clinic states that we like to take care of the sick, to educate those who care, and to investigate the illnesses of the patients we look after. I think Bridge, Dr. Makar, basically epitomizes our Cleveland Clinic mission. He takes care of the sick. And the difference between taking care and investigating their illness is that while care is the art of medicine, investigation is the science of medicine. And he epitomizes both. But he also carries out the third part of our mission, which is he educates those who care. He gives those who already are taking care of patients the ability to do a better job. And for that, I really applaud him. And I think this is fantastic that he's doing this. So thank you very much, Rich. You certainly win our mission statements accolades. What I'm going to do over the next few minutes is talk about type 2 diabetes, probably in a lot of ways that you already know, but maybe just give it a perspective that hopefully we can start to put in the stuff that we normally use and put it with rationale and with pathophysiology. Now, I think I'm going to start by with a question. And the question basically is, type 2 diabetes occurs primarily because of the presence of insulin resistance, beta cell failure, loss of beta cell compensatory reserve, progressive loss of muscle's ability to dispose of glucose. If you could put in your favorite answer, I would be obliged. Dr. Makar has said 20 seconds. I'm hoping it'll cut down to 10. When do I know I need to go? Okay, stop. Do I go to the next slide? Well, I'm not sure I can see. Oh, here I can. So basically, approximately 86% did not answer. This is not very helpful. But the others, 7% said insulin resistance, and 7% said loss of beta cell compensatory reserve. And really, the true answer is, in fact, I've lost my slides. The correct answer is, in fact, 3, which is loss of beta cell compensatory reserve. I think in the next few minutes, that's basically what we're going to concentrate on, is where does insulin resistance come into this, and where does a beta cell compensatory reserve come into this. So, it's clear that every one of you are completely aware of the fact that type 2 diabetes occurs because of the coexistence of insulin resistance and beta cell failure, or beta cell loss of compensatory reserve. Question is, how many of you truly believe that insulin resistance is a disorder? And I would suggest to you that insulin resistance is probably not a disorder. I will suggest to you that, in fact, insulin resistance is the major reason why every one of you is alive today in this country, in this world. Why? Think about it. When the good Lord made the body, the engine is the muscle. Glucose is the petrol or the gas. If the engine was very, very efficient, picked up all the glucose there was, burnt it to carbon dioxide and water, you'd have lots of energy. But the moment you couldn't get food, you'd die. And so basically, you needed a system that said you wouldn't use all the fuel that you had immediately as soon as you got it. And that's where you see a block in the muscle. The ability of the muscle to pick up glucose is considered finite instead of infinite. And because it's finite, some glucose gets left behind in the blood, causes an extra release of insulin, and you shunt into fat. You now have the stores that says you can survive starvation. And if you think about it, the history of the world has been cycles of starvation and plenty. For the human race to survive, we needed the ability to store glucose as calorie. And so therefore, the ability for the presence of insulin resistance at its most basic level, the ability of the muscle to finitely dispose of glucose, not infinitely dispose of glucose, was the major reason why the human race survived. The big question then becomes, how much of this is genetic and how much of this is environmental? At the present time, with all the genes that have been worked out for type 2 diabetes, the best estimate we have is that in fact about 10% of the disease might be attributable to genes. 90% of the disease is environmental. So clearly there is a tremendous environmental influence on diabetes. Let me give you a concrete example. It's a little bit of a distraction, but let me just tell you this. So you look at me, you realize I'm fat, I'm old, I must eat like a pig. But if I eat like a pig and that puts me at risk, why don't pigs get diabetes? And so the question is, pigs don't get diabetes. And when you look at it, why? They still eat a lot. The answer is in a certain circumstance that happened. There's an island off the US coast, which is, don't worry about the name, it's a small island, but people tried to live on this island. They took their pigs there, they took their cows there, they took their crops there, they were going to make a life on this island. And what happened basically was, the weather was bad, the vegetation was lousy, they couldn't do a thing on the island. In the end, they gave up and they left, but they forgot their pigs. And over about 8 to 10 generations, some of these pigs not only survived on the very poor nutrition of this island, but they were able to reproduce. So when people went back there 10 generations later, they said, we forgot our pigs. And they brought the pigs all back to the mainland, and all the pigs got diabetes. What happened? Well, only the insulin-resistant pigs could survive on the island. They were the only animals who could basically reproduce, so that nature made a group of very insulin-resistant pigs. And they got diabetes as soon as they hit America, because what do you know about America? It's McDonald's, Chevrolet, and apple pie. So pigs got the same problem. Now you might say, well, what difference does it make to me in India? Well, you have a burgeoning problem with diabetes. Why? Why do you have a burgeoning problem with diabetes? Why does India have one of the highest incidences of new onset diabetes in the world? Well, because this country was built originally, even as much as more than 50 years ago. If the monsoons didn't come, you would have starvation. There was a very clear nutritional deprivation that was at any time possible in this country. The people who lived in this country had to therefore develop a system that said they could survive this nutritional deprivation.